Yay, I think we're live. Oh, yay, Pat. Pat's already been doing this. Yeah, I had a couple of questions on a post, and I told them that I would cover it tonight because I haven't really covered it before. I think I touched on it a couple of times. Okay. Yay, we have sound. I'm going to go ahead and play the intro, guys, and we're going to get started on this so that anybody has questions. And there's another subject that I want to touch on, so you guys don't let me forget about embroidery. So let's go ahead and get started. So the question was earlier this week, how can you get your stamped images like they do on a Brother Scan and Cut into your design space? So, yeah, you have to size them and you have to think about it, Pat, and I'm going to cover that because I've done it and it's worked for me. And it's been really, really, really close. And there's several ways to do it, and well, there's a couple of ways to do it, and several things that you can do with what you have done. Hi, Miss Sheila. Hi, Patty. So, what I have done is I have already done this, guys. I'm not going to actually stamp these, but say you have a stamp that you do not have a die for, um, and you're wanting to use that and cut out a die shape for it. I myself don't like to fussy cut, okay? And yeah, some of your stamps you do have come like Technology Tuesdays. They come with a SVG file so that you can cut around it. They're already sized and everything. But a lot of stamps don't, especially like your wood block stamps that you get at Hobby Lobby and places like that. They don't have um, all of that. These are specialties that I got at like a scrapbook expo and stuff like that. So, but let's just pretend that I don't have access to that with this stamp and I want to use it in design space. Or that I actually want this bigger to put on a t-shirt or whatever, that I want to color it in with infusible inks. How can I do that? It's super simple. It may not seem super simple, but it really, really is. So the first thing you're going to do, guys, I will stamp one. You want to use a good cardstock. I don't mean any. If you stamp at all, you know what I mean, because your stamp inks, if you use good inks and you use a cheaper paper, your stamps lines will bleed. Okay. So you want to use a smooth cardstock, number one, and you want to use a good cardstock. This happens to be close to my heart. I like this, and I like Stampin' Up! The Whisper White. The Gina K is like 120 pounds. It's really good too. But you can use your scraps for this, something that you've held to the side, and you can stamp your images on a good cardstock that doesn't give you bleed lines. And myself, I like to use my Misty, any stamping platform that you have. If you have the Tim Holtz, it doesn't matter. I got this before Tim Holtz came out with theirs, and so any stamping platform that you have for this is really good. If you're a great stamper that stamps by hand, you got it made. You just need a good, clean, crisp image. And if you don't stamp, you definitely want to use a platform if you're going to try this. You're going to ink up using a good ink. I'm using Close to My Heart. I'm just using the water-based black. You can use a solvent-based. To me, sometimes the solvent-based doesn't give me as crisp of an image as I want. So that's not really dark. I want it a little bit darker than that. So I'm going to ink it up again, and because I'm using my Misty, I can do that and get a little bit darker, crisper image. And you can see that that's a little bit better there. So that's what I want. And this particular stamp, they didn't make a die for it. Don't know why, but I would have loved a die for this. But I made my own using Sure Cuts a Lot. And I'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to show you guys how, because even though we can do some things in Design Space, some things don't work out and they skew. So I'm going to show you a great way to do that. Yay! Yes, this is Creative Touches. I don't know what your real name is, but yes, you can do this. A beginner can do this. This is super simple and super easy. If you can stamp an image, you can do this. That's it. If you can stamp an image, that's all you got to do. Pat, these are from Technique Tuesday. They do have a website. It's called techniquetuesday.com. They are not an affiliate, but their stamps, some of their stamps come with SVG digital cut files for their stamps. So if you don't want to buy the dies, you can do that. And this particular one, I don't know if it's still available. It's called Blooming Branches. So, and we're going to work with that flower tonight. So, we've stamped our image. Let's go over to Design Space and see what we can do with that. So, the next thing I'm going to do is take this to my printer scanner. Your printer has to have a scanner on it to do this. And you're going to scan it. If it doesn't, you can take it up to an office supply store and you can scan this onto a jump drive or whatever and bring it back to your computer. Or to a library. So you can stamp up a bunch of your stamps and go do that and put them all on a jump drive, and then you can get them onto your computer. That's basically the whole thing, is getting it to your computer from this stamped image. Photos do not clean up well, so if you snap a photo of it with your phone, it's probably not going to do as well. Okay? If somebody wants to get a link for that stamp, Sarah, that is, this stamp is Close to My Heart. You're a Classic, I believe that's the one it is, and I think it's still available. The flower is techniquetuesday.com. I have some layered flower stamps, Creative Touches, but I'm going to kind of create a layer with this, even though this is not a layered stamp, if that's what you're asking me. There are stamps that do layers. Let's see. Like these. These are not good for this technique, and it's simply because you have so many different ones, and if they're good and crisp, you could probably do it. This solid image, you could work with it. I mean, you can do it. It would do better in Escal or an outside program, but I mainly wanted to show how to do this with for those of you who do not use Inkscape, or those of you who do not have Escal. I want you to have options too, because we're going to cover that. This one would be better using an outside program. You can do that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go over to Design Space. And you can see that I've already put this one in, and these are the 4 things that I did with it without using any outside program whatsoever. I didn't use anything but Design Space, my stamp, and my printer. That's all I used to get these 4 different looks from that one stamp. but I'm going to show you a little bit about how I did it using the truck. So when you go to, now I'm on a Mac, so mine may look a little bit different, guys. But basically, when you go to your scan software on your printer and open up your scanner, and I'm hoping that mine works because I've been having issues with it crashing. It's going to open up, hopefully, and you're going to scan. You want to look for your DPI, okay? And I scan mine in at 300 to 600 DPI, and it's going to depend on the stamp. And you'll know if it doesn't look good or whatever. When you go to upload it, you need to increase or decrease your DPI to get what you're looking for. And my scanner it's been crashing. I've got Epson and Mac. I've got tickets working on it. I did finally, after 7 hours, get it to work enough to upload my images for you guys last night. So these are the two that we're working with. And you can see that that one's much bigger. This one I saved as a PNG, but it was smaller. And this one I did at 1200. And it's going to depend on the crispness. I scanned this one in as a dots per inch DPI at, I think, 300. And I scanned this one at 1200. And that's just the stamped image that I stamped on the card like you just saw me do. That's what those are. They are nothing more than that. So once you have them in, the next thing you're going to want to do is bring those into Design Space. So you're going to click on Upload, and you're going to upload an image, and then you're going to drag and drop or browse and bring that image in. And you can see that it's all cleaned up around it because I saved that as a PNG instead of a JPEG. And when I did that, it cleared up all that background. Now I'm leaving what's on the inside here because I need that on the inside for this particular image. I cleaned this one up prior. This is one that I used, and I used in Escal to make a die for it because it didn't have a die. I don't have to clean up the inside because I'm using that for a stamp. Now, if you want the outlines, you do have to go in and you have to clean up all of that stuff. So you're going to click Complex, and then you're going to make it larger. And you're going to come in here and you're going to clean up all of the white areas. Okay? You have to clean up all of it, or you're going to have a weird looking image at the end. It all has to be cleaned out of there. And it takes time. So when you go to do this, if you have an image like this, you're going to have to want to spend the time on it to get what you want. Now, all I wanted was a die cut for mine and a shape, so I did this one, in particular one in Escal. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys how I did this one. So let's pretend, and you can see what this looks like over here. This is your cut side. That's what your cut image is going to look like. Okay? That's what your cut image is going to look like. This is what your print and cut's going to look like. So I can bring this in, and without all that background in there, I'm going to show you the one that I did. You can see that I have my grid behind it. So really all I can do is size that and put it on a square card and set it for a print and cut. That's basically all I can do with this. Now, had I only cleaned up the outside and not cleaned up the inside, just going to view all here. My truck is in here somewhere. There it is. Here is the image that I had, and I'm stretching this out. I shouldn't, because I brought this in from Escal and I sized it in Escal the size of the stamp. The actual size of my stamp is about 3 and I don't know, 1/8 in size. So you have to size it down. I shouldn't have resized it, but I did. But it should bring in 2 design space the exact size in Escal. All I wanted was an outline so that I could cut this on paper and then do my stamp. So that's one way that you can do them, but I did not do this one for enlargement. This one was simply to get a die cut for the actual stamp that I had. Okay, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that in Escal. But what if we don't want to do that? We want to be able to enlarge it. Then yes, you want to clean it up so that you can put it on a square and do that. But as long as that background's white, you can do it that way. So with the flower, the thing that I did the same thing. I went and uploaded, and I brought this in. Okay, and I select complex, and you can see I've got some trash and stuff up here that was on my scanner bed and things like that from working with it. I'm still picking complex, and I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to crop. I'm going to minimize it so that I can see it, and I've selected my crop tool, and I'm just going to crop the image, and then it's going to go back because I scanned this at 1200 dots per inch. Anything on the outside that you want to clean up, you're going to use your wand and you're going to clean that up and get rid of it. Any little excess or little stuff that it didn't clean up, you're going to want to get your eraser in there, and you're going to want to come in here and clean up all the way around it. Do not clean up the inside. Don't clean up the inside unless you're doing, for this method, you don't clean up the inside. For the second method I'm going to show you, you do have to clean up the inside. You have to go in and you have to clean up, all of these little bits. You have to get in there and you have to come in and you have to clean it all up. And I'm going to show you which ones I did do this with and which ones I didn't. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me clean up this entire thing because this one is very intricate and it takes time. If you have simple stamps, it's quick and easy. Okay, so you can do it that way. And I'm just going to cancel this because I've already brought it in. So I just cleaned up the outside and I saved it. I did not clean up the inside. And this is what I have when I import that. Let me get you something you can see on here. And let's change that to gray. You can see that I didn't clean the inside of this up. I brought it in and I have it set as a print and cut image. Now how does that help? That helps because instead of stamping that image and getting my little 3-inch stamp, I can now resize this up to 6.75 by 925. I can print and cut this a lot larger for a much bigger card and do much more with it. And it's going to look just like I did a stamped image and fussy cut it really, really well because it's just going to cut around the outside. And that's what you want to do. Clean up the outside, save it as a print and cut, and then you have it. Now, if you want it to be where you can use it to write or draw, you have to do more work with it. And that's what I've done here. You can see that I've turned this one into draw rather than print and cut. I'm going to change it back really quick so you can see, because I did initially save it as a print then cut. Change that back to cut so I can get it. I'm going to change that to print. Let's make it black so you can see it. So I cleaned up the whole image and cleaned up the inside as well for this one. And it comes in as a print and cut. But if I want to change it to draw, you can see what happens. You see all that double line and all of that. That's not really what you want, but it may be what you want. It just depends on what kind of image that you're looking for. If you want to color in the inside of that black with infusible inks and stuff like that after it's drawn, you can. But if you want a single line image similar to this and getting rid of that, you have to use your contour. And you can use that contour and come in and take out that outside line, and that's going to take a minute to load because it is pretty large. I know where it's at the top. But you can take out that outside line right here and then you've got that single line image. Now it's not as crisp and it's not as clear as the stamp for print and cut, and it's not going to be. But now it is a single line image, so if I wanted to engrave it, use it with my foil quill, use infusible inks and color it in, I can do that, and I have a single line. I can also at this point contour it, bring that back, that outside line, and hide all contours, and now I have just the outline. What can I do with that? With that outline, I can change that to a cut, and now I can have just the outlined image. I can use this and do the contour on it and change this portion. Oops, I've hidden the outside line on this one, and then I can go in and change that one to cut, and now I can change that to whatever color I want and put it over the top of this one. Size that one back down. And I can change the way that that print cuts. I'm not going to make sure it's exactly lined, but you get the general idea here about how I did that. Let me change that canvas so that you can actually see it. But you can see here that I created a cutout for it, then I contoured it one more time and changed it to a cut, and it allowed me to get this overlay type to flatten to any color I want with any color I want and get a totally different look from this. And I haven't done anything except use my stamp, my printer, and design space. Okay, so that's how you can get it from the double line to the single line when you're doing your stamps, and how you can get that contoured and you can get that different look. I probably should have done that background on that one a different color, just so it would pop. There we go. So you can see that you can get totally different looks because that's all clear back there, because I changed that single line to a cut. And that was all I did. I changed the single line. I took it from a double line to a single line, changed it to a cut. I took this other one and I contoured and hid everything except the outside line so that I could do that. And then I can flatten it. Now I have a totally new look that I can do for print and cut. Did that make sense? Yes, Pat, you can do your 1-inch circles using your contour to see the exact size of your stamp. You can. Hey, Sue, no biggie. So what is another way that we can do this to get true shadow layers and get it split up? Say that you wanted to cut it out of iron-on and get this kind of a look with iron-on. Then you're going to have to step into an outside program like Sure Cuts a Lot or Inkscape. So I'm opening that up. There it goes. There's my library. And I'll just cancel that. I'll start a new project so that you guys can see. So I'm going to do a new project and say okay. And now my Sure Cuts a Lot is open. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm taking that same exact PNG, because remember when I scanned it on my scanner stuff, instead of saving it for a JPEG, I saved it as a PNG. And that's just the way that I like to do it, because it doesn't pixelate on me. I can change it without it pixelating. So I'm going to go to Trace and I'm going to choose an image. And I know that that is on my desktop and it is Scan 1, and I'm going to open that. And it's going to load that up. Yes, Patty, when you take those two colors and you flatten them together, they will print and then it will cut out one piece and just cut the outline. Now the other way, if I just change that layer to cut, let me just show you. If I just change this color layer right here to cut, and I don't do anything with it and I attach it or group it, then it's going to cut it out. Okay? But you can keep the outline for that. You don't even need to flatten it for that. You can just change your outline to cut. Let's unflatten just so that everybody's clear. I can go back to unflatten. That's what I wanted to do. I want to change that back to a cut from flatten, and then I get my contour back. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hide all contours, show all contours. And now I have my cut outline, but you can see that that's not going to cut probably very smooth because I cleaned that up and I brought it into Design Space that way. If you want to do a cut like that, you need to use Escal or Inkscape, and that's where we're at now. So if you wanted to cut just the outline, this is where you need to be. So the first thing I'm going to do is I brought this image in, and you can see there are a lot of nodes, and I have that scan line up there because I didn't lay it on my scanner bed well. So I'm going to crop it. I'm going to select this right here and go to crop. And I'm just going to pull this down. I don't need all that extra space. I'm just going to bring this in. So that's going to tell Sure Cuts a Lot to crop the image for me. There's a link in the description down below, Andrea, to get Sure Cuts a Lot. You just need Sure Cuts a Lot 5. You don't need Pro unless you want it, guys. Pro is very expensive. So I've got that. I've checked out that, and I can see what my preview is. I only need 2 colors because this is black and white. So I'm just going to take this down, and sometimes it may ask you to wait if it's a large image. Because I have a PNG at 1200 dots per inch, it is going to be a little slow. At 300, it won't be this slow. So I'm going to take that down to 2 colors. I'm going to leave the mode in color layers. I'm going to leave the resample at none. I'm not going to do the despeckle. I am going to change my smoothing because I don't want it to smooth out my lines. I want them to stay nice and crisp like they are, so I'm going to change that to a 0. The detail I want to be 100%, and then I'm going to update my preview, and I'm going to take a look at it, and that looks pretty good to me, and I'm going to say okay. Now it's brought it into Sure Cuts a Lot. I'm holding my shift key and I'm going to size it. If you don't hold the shift key, I think they changed that where it keeps proportions now and you don't have to hold the shift key, but for me it's habit. So now I have the image in there and I have this as cut lines. Now I can simplify this down so that it cuts well. Again, when you're doing this to cut iron-on or vinyl, you want to simplify your images and get some of those intricate things out of there and smooth it, and you can do that with your tools. I think it's under object, no, edit, let's see, simplify is what I'm looking for. I think it's under path. Yes, under path. You guys can't see it, but there's a bar at the top of my page on the other page, and it has File, Edit, Object Path, Layer, and it's under Path, and you want to simplify, and it will take some of that out of there. But I'm not going to do that for this because I want to keep all the detail, because that's what you will do. You will lose some detail when you simplify. However, I do want that die cut for it, and I want it to match up, and I want it to be the same size when it goes into Design Space. Because we know when we size those in Design Space, sometimes they can get wonky and not be true. So what I'm going to do is go to Appearance, and I'm going to add a shadow layer. And just so you guys can see, I'm going to make that shadow layer pink and say OK. Now you can see the shadow around my exact image, and I've got a little bit of trash right there. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to get my eraser, just like in Design Space. And what size I want that eraser. I'm just going to get that trash out of there. Just erase it. I don't see any more. Maybe there's a little there. Any trash on the outside of your scan you want to get rid of. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to Appearance. Add that shadow layer. I'm going to make it where you guys can see it by selecting my color. And I want this to be rounded. I don't want sharp edges around my cut. I want it rounded. Totally up to you. You don't have to change that. I do want a blackout shadow layer. See what happened there? It covered it. And that is a little bit close to me. I might want an extra shadow layer, but I'm going to leave that one. And I'm going to tell it that I want maybe 3 or 4 shadow layers. Depending on what I'm doing, I might need those. So then you can change your end color to whatever color you want it to be, and set that up. And then you're going to say, okay. All right, at that point, I'm really done. I'm going to go up to File, which is going to be at the top of your page, and then I'm going to go to Export. And when I go to Export, this is going to pop up. I'm saving it as an SVG. Okay? Very important. You can save as other formats, but you want to save as an SVG. And then I'm going to name it. I'm going to name this Flower 1 and save to my desktop. I am going to make sure that Design Space Compatible is checked and say OK. And now that is on my desktop. I can basically close that out. I'm not going to. I'm just going to minimize it. And we are going to go back into Design Space. And I'm just going to go, let's change this canvas to something that's not so glaring for you guys. I'm going to move all of these out of the way so that you can see the difference. We're going to go to Upload. We're going to upload. I am going to drag that in. And I'm going to name it, leave it Flower 1, and I'm going to tag it Flowers. You'll want to make sure that you name and tag. This is your only chance to name and tag when you're uploading, guys. Yes, Krista, it will be available later. The stamp guide that I use is a Misty. It's called a Misty. I'll show you that in just a moment. You can go to scrapbook.com though and get the Tim Holtz one. It's just as good. It doesn't matter as long as it's a stamping platform. Then we're going to take this image and we're going to insert it. Now I have that same nice, crisp, clear. I'm just sizing it down a little bit. I'm going to ungroup it. I have my cut and I have all of my shadow layers that I can flatten it to. I can change the color of if I want more of an overhang, if I want it close to it. I have that. So if I wanted this to look like a die cut that had a little bit more edge to it, I can select that, bring that in there, and you can see how I have that outside edge. Now I've made it look like a true die cut. And if I put that on white paper and go in and color it, I've got the same stamp, but I've made it bigger. So there are tons of things. I can change this to draw, just like I could the other. And you can see that I have a little bit, to me it looks like a little bit crisper image than my draw image over here. We'll see. You can see that this one has all these little extra dots in it. This one looks a little cleaner. So, to me. But this one looks a little bit cleaner. So, I mean, there are several ways to do it. And again, you can come in here and you can contour it just the same way you did with Design Space. So, you don't have to have all of those extras. To get the shadow layers, yes, you need an outside program because you can't get the shadow layers to be true in Design Space yet. Hopefully they're going to give us that tool soon. But I can get them here. So you can see that I can change that and get that single line just like I did there. I can contour, and I can just change, show all contours, and hide just the top one. And now I have that same single line image. So there are tons of things that you can do with this, and tons of ways of uploading your stamps and then using them in Design Space and resizing them so that they're not the little 1 or 2 inch stamps that you're putting on cards. You can make this the focal point of your card. Again, you have to stay, but most cards are going to be 5x7 or less. So you can take this up to a 5x7 image from a 1 inch stamp, and you've got yourself a new set of stamps. Is that making sense to you guys? So even though it's still going to be print and cut, and I can print and cut it this way too. I can flatten it just like this with that single line on there. So I can change the way that my stamp looks as well as changing its size. And I had somebody ask me, can you use your Cricut Maker for embroidery? You can use all of your Cricut machines for embroidery. Does it embroider? No. But I can take this image right here and have my Cricut draw it onto a piece of fabric with the fine tip pins, and then instead of paper, and stop it before it cuts. You can just leave your blade out of your machine, take your blade out, and just have it draw. So you don't have to cut. You can see right here it's just draw. I don't have it attached to anything to cut. And then I can send that straight over, set on draw, and draw it onto that fabric. But if you're scared, just take your blade out. If you're scared it's going to cut, then you can take and put that on your hoop, and you can embroider all day long. And you can do that with any image in Design Space, guys. Any image in Design Space. You can use it for embroidery. You can flatten them. So there are tons of things that you can do. Your stamps are not obsolete. Your die cuts are not obsolete. And I've heard a lot of people say, I wish the Cuttlebug would come back. Guys, you can use plates and embossing folders and dies from other people. They don't have to be Cuttlebug. Buy some Sizzix plates. You might need an extra shim, but that we have to do that anyway from one embossing folder to another. So you're not out anything. So if you can get one, a Cuttlebug that somebody's selling because it's obsolete, you could get for 20 or 25 bucks, I say jump on it. But if you have stamps and you've packed them away and you're not using them because you have a Cricut, you can use those with your Cricut. You can still use those. Oh, thanks, Sherry. So does anybody have any questions on how to get your stamps into Design Space, either using Escal or using just Design Space? Because you can do it both ways. I've given you 2 ways. And the way I did it in Escal, it's basically going to be the same in Inkscape, just a few different steps. Yeah, I have a Sizzix Big Shot and a Cuttlebug. And I find myself, my Cuttlebug is portable and it's easy. And my Big Shot is big because I got the Pro. It's the huge one. It stays here. It never leaves. Okay, does anybody have any other Design Space questions? Right, Marianne? I have so many stamps I don't know what I have, but what if I went through and stamped them all and packed them up as I stamped them, and I put them on a jump drive and brought them into Design Space? I won't have to pull them out again because now I can make them any size I want and print and cut them. I don't have to pull them out. Awesome. Blooming Branch stamp set. That's it, Pat. And they do have a die for it if you want the die. But if you have a Brother Scan and Cut, of course, you know you can do this without the dies. You can do that. But we can do this is basically the same as your Brother Scan and Cut, changing the size and uploading your stamps. We're just doing it without a scan and cut machine. Yeah, I love my Stampin' Up stuff too, Sherry. But there are so many things. I mean, it's like I have even bought some stamps from Close to My Heart and Stampin' Up. Now you can't do this and sell them, guys, because that'll get you into trouble. But you can do this for your personal use. But I have, like, I really wanted that die cut set, but all they had were the stamps left. So I was able to make my own dies and still got the stamp set. So when you find stamps and you're like, well, they don't have the dies, don't worry about it. You can make your own die. Especially these rubber wood block stamps you buy on clearance at Hobby Lobby and Michael's. I have bought so many for a quarter just because they were a quarter. I'm like, I might use it one day, but then I want to die for it. Does it have a center draw utility? I'm Can somebody explain to me what that is? I'll be happy to pull it up and show. Um, I'm not sure what that is. I mean, they have draw. There's a drawing tool. Yeah, Sheila, I used to, and I was like, I don't use it enough, and I can do this in design space, so I got rid of mine. But yeah, you've got the draw tools. I don't know how to use these yet, guys. I'm just playing. I haven't learned to use those. I play more with the effects. Let me just do a screenshot here because it's not going to let me pull that bar over. Here is what the top bar looks like. You have file, edit, object, all your layers. Under file, you have open recent, you close windows, close your selected image, save, duplicate, rename, move, revert. Oops, nope, I'm in the wrong one. Oops, that's my Apple. Let me select. There we go. You have your new project, open project, save your projects, import, export, trace. Basically the same thing you got up here. Um, Under effects, you have all of your text. It is a little blurry. Yeah, the screenshot is on that. It didn't screenshot as well because it's transparent on my desktop. Yeah, Inkscape has that. Yeah, you use your brother for fussy cutting. Yeah, that's what I was doing, Gerald. And then I figured, why not? If I'm scanning it on that machine and then resizing it and doing it, why don't I just do it in Design Space? Louise, do you know what that is? I'm not sure what that is, Pat. Again, I'm still learning shortcuts a lot, and I'm not moving to Inkscape until I learn this one. Right, Sheila? I mean, this is, to me, shortcuts a lot and Inkscape are the perfect tools to turn Design Space into what we need it to do because we're short some tools on there, but we have the tools here. But if you're into doing a lot of text stuff, Escal's the way to go. You have so many text tools. I'll look up that center, what is it called? Center draw? My center trace. Now I know we have trace. Um, so you can trace any image. Okay, thank you, Marianne. I don't think, but I don't know all the tools of this yet. I know we have tons of text stuff. I know that you can trace any image. We can do spirals. We can do on a path, on an arch. Yeah, you can do some altering on your images in here. Just depends on what you want to do. Um, let's see. Which I don't ever mess with the nodes most of the time. It's not letting me select it for some reason. That's not the one I want. Oh, maybe I have to break apart first. Okay. Feature in Inkscape, it features that it can really alter an image. Yeah, I don't know what you might want to do. I mean, I know that we can erase in here, and I don't know what you mean by altering it. Um, but you can see all of the nodes in there. And that's why I was saying, guys, this is something you'll want to simplify. You wouldn't want to cut it this way. You would want to cut it on your shadow layer because your shadow layer would be smooth. But you see all of those nodes? That will make her sound like a sewing machine. Yeah, let me know too, Pat. I'm interested. I like to learn, so if I could learn something new, I like to learn something new. Alter the path that the blade or the pen takes. I don't know if this one will do that or not. I know that we could change the layers as to which one cuts first or which one writes first. We can do that in here. You just shift the layers. I I deleted them. Undo. Yeah, these don't have a bunch of nodes on them here. Let me get rid of that. But you can see the layers here, and you can tell it which way to go, which one goes first. To convert an image for engraving, yeah. Oh, I got it. I got you. Are you talking about hashing it? The hash marks? Okay. So if nobody has any other Design Space questions or questions about how to do your stamps in Escal or in Design Space, I will, let's see, we're going live again on Monday. Monday's a file night, supporter files. Thank you to all of my Ko-fi and Patreon supporters and my YouTube memberships and, of course, the moderators. Monday is going to be monthly supporter file night. So I don't know what we're going to do yet. I've got couple of things I'm working on, and I will get those out. And then Wednesday is going to be one-time support and monthly support file. And then we'll be back on Freebie Friday. Oh, I got you, Pat. So that you can eliminate the outer line. You know what? I didn't even try it. Before we get out of here, let me get my select tool. Helps. I don't want to get rid of everything. Just some of it. I don't know how I got that line on there, but drawing it. Let me get rid of that. Let me select all of that and merge. Okay, so now I've merged it. That gave me something to think about and something to play with. Because as it stands right now, it's going to cut an inside and an outside line. And you want to do single line, which we did over in Design Space. We could contour it out. I will look and see, and if I can figure it out, I will let you know, Pat. Yeah, that's going to be easier to do in the silhouette. I have the business edition of it. I just don't use it. So, I think that's what she means, Louise. Okay, guys, I thank you for joining me. Please give a thumbs up, like. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. And if you want to get access to all of my files, you can do so on Ko-fi or Patreon. It has to be monthly on Ko-fi, or just sign up on Patreon. Or you can do the Cutie Collectors level here on YouTube. So, on the memberships. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for helping me out, moderators, and thank you to all of my supporters. I greatly appreciate you all. And you guys stay well. Sanitize. Stay well.